Hello, YouTube friends, family, followers, subscribers, whatever. Astro Coach Sarah here, otherwise known as Admiral Sarah. So this week I wanted to do some practical stuff because my journey with metaphysics or spirituality did not start with astrology. That is my. Okay, there we go. Now I don't. Okay, sorry. Slight technical issue. Okay. Um, my journey with spirituality did not start with astrology. It started before that. It started, actually, astrology was kind of the last thing that I learned with regards to spirituality. It just happens to be the language that is fun and I love it. So that's what I talk about the most. But prior to that, I got my coaching and leadership training program complete and I did Reiki classes and all of that. And through Reiki classes, was where I kind of got some of the practical stuff. So we can talk about, astrology, tarot, oracle, crystals, human design, all of those things. And yet those are tools. And while I love astrology, and so astrology is super supportive, tarot is fun, oracle is fun, human design has its moments. It's not my go-to thing, but I do get a lot out of it. Um, but like for a lot of people, you're like, what foreign language are you fucking speaking? Well, okay, so let's back up a little bit because I want to be able to connect with the people who are kind of more black and white and literal in their thinking. So I would love it if you're one of those people, if you can share with me in the comments if some of this resonated or contact me or, however that works for you. Um, so I wanted to kind of talk about like more like how did I even get into it? But like what then can you take from that? So it started with Reiki and chakras and learning about how chakras work and how to like the one thing I feel like I've been speaking a lot with clients and friends lately is bringing stuff from the upper three chakras, the crown, the third eye, and the throat, down into the lower three chakras, the solar plexus, the sacral, and the root. And like I don't know. It's not that I don't know. It's that I feel like it's an individual, unique way of the process. For me, I can do visualizations, I can journal, I can meditate, all of those things. But like, what happens if you can't visualize? Well, you've got to find your own way to work with the chakras. But there's also this way. There's the literal function of your physical body because the solar plexus is connected to the gut, the sacral is connected to the reproductive region, and the root is connected to your sits bones, the bones that you're sitting on right now. There's bones there underneath your butt or you like the layers of fat of your butt. I was trying not to say that you're a fat ass, but anyway, I guess there was kind of no avoiding it. But um, I hope you got a chuckle out of that. But anyway, it starts with learning that your physical body is what makes the spiritual happen, the metaphysics happen, right? It's an inside job. That's why it didn't start with astrology. Did I track moon cycles? Yes, but I didn't know my natal moon. I didn't know the moon where the moon was in my birth chart. I knew I was an Aquarius sun and I barely knew what that meant when I started all of this. Okay. So it did not start with astrology. It didn't start with any kind of an understanding of astrology. It started with Reiki. It started with chakras. It started with, yes, tracking the moon cycle and my cycles and understanding that like it's a full moon. I'm probably feeling some sort of way, blah, blah, blah. It was much later than that when I comprehended why certain moons do certain things for to me and other moons don't. Like if there's a full moon in a water sign like Pisces, Cancer, or Scorpio, I'm going to feel a different way than if there's a full moon in Aries, Leo, or Sagittarius, which are fire signs, right? So my point is like, yes, you can track the moon. However, do you understand what's coming up that even needs to be processed? And that takes practice. This is like knitting and crocheting. People tell me they want to learn how to crochet. That's great. Are you willing to put in the time to actually practice crocheting or knitting? Because there's no way around the time to practice knitting and crocheting, right? You got to practice. There's no way around that, right? And that's with anything else, right? You have to be willing to put in the time. So, practically speaking, to really understand and put it into a daily practice, you intentionally have to learn how to work with your body. You have to intentionally focus attention on your tummy, your gut, when you eat, what you've eaten, how is it processing? Is it giving you indigestion? Is it causing your gut to feel like bloated? Is it causing your gut to feel yucky? Like that was too much. Like Indian food does that to me. Like it just does not digest well for me. Um, and I found out over the years that like, different color dyes and how those affect my gut, and I kind of just avoid them in general. Um, different sugar substitutes, most of which I avoid, because of how they process through my gut. But like, case in point, recently I've been like exploring different protein powders, and a lot of these protein powders and protein drinks have sucralose in them. And I'm like, ugh, like, I just don't like sucralose. I know it's in everything. It's a sugar substitute, fine, whatever, but it's kind of like Splenda. I don't like it. Um, so but like even like sports drinks and stuff like that, if they're like colorful, to me, that's an immediate no because I don't want the color dye. But to learn and understand that, this is part of being spiritual, is learning what feels good when your body is digesting it and what feels yucky or nasty when your body is digesting it, right? You can also call this intuitive eating, right? Did y'all know that I used to be a vegan? Some of you probably know that. I was vegan, then I was vegetarian, and then I just started eating meat again. Um, and now I eat meat regularly, but at some point I thought that I needed to be a vegetarian and clear out my diet, and that was helpful. And you may need to do that too, become a vegetarian or a vegan. Um, or you just need to buy higher quality meat and eat that. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it depends on what you're trying to accomplish. Um, but when we're talking about like the literal black and white of spirituality, it's learning how your body functions from the inside out. It's learning how you digest. Do you have indigestion? Does your belly gurgle a lot? Do you poop regularly? And if you do or don't, what kind of pooping habits do you have? Now, yes, there's like earthly world medical explanations for all of these things. And so I'm not telling you not to go to the doctor. Okay, stop freaking out about that. I'm telling you to be attentive to how things process through your system, because I could go to a doctor and they could say you need to use a sugar substitute like Splenda. And I'm like, no, not an option. Not an option. Because I don't like the way it tastes. I don't like the way it digests. It gives me horrible, terrible gas. It makes my bowels hurt. That's practical spirituality. It's not complicated. Also, it's how do your joints function? When I started doing this work, I was having headaches, I was having severe joint pain, all of that. I don't get headaches nearly as often anymore. I do still get them, but they're pretty rare. Um, and I do still get like sinus issues, um, depending on uh where planets are. I get sinus issues, but it's also like agitated or aggravated by something in the external world. Like I've been around fragrances or something like that, which is another thing. Do you use fragrancy stuff? Do you realize the effect of that stuff? Like some of this is like educating and researching um how things affect us, right? Like if you research the effect of color dyes on our mental, emotional systems, you learn that certain color dyes do affect emotional reactivity. So they don't just affect digestion. I simply count on how I physically feel when I ingest something. I count on that to tell me whether my system can handle it or not every other way, mentally and emotionally. Okay. But do some research on what color dyes do to your mental and emotional system, like your ADHD or your emotional reactivity or your over processing, overthinking, because color dyes can affect that. Additives and preservatives in the food can affect that. So this is practical spirituality. It's learning how your body operates. It's learning and asking and researching how different things in the world affect your body systems. Okay. Also, so physical stuff. Okay, there's also a glossary on the internet you can look for. It's Louise Hay, Hay, and it's like causes of symptoms in the body, and it's a whole glossary of symptoms. I used it a long time ago. I haven't used it in a really long time, but I used to use it all the time, like religiously. I use that glossary all the time. Every time I had a symptom, I would go look in that glossary and I would read what the causation was, and I would address that, whether on my own, through meditation with my coaches, etc. So if something said it was like fear of blah, 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 blah. Okay, how do I deal with the fear of that thing so that the symptom clears out? So I would do the Louise Hay causes of symptoms glossary along with whatever physical movements I knew to do, stretching or whatever it was. And I would work through whatever the cause of the symptom was mentally, emotionally, the fear, the uncertainty, or whatever. So I actually did rely heavily on that glossary years ago. Um, so, okay, so that's the physical. So learning how your physical body works, your digestive system, your joints, your aches and pains, the discomforts in your body, like learning what those are about, that glossary that I just mentioned will help with that. Um, will help you understand that. But also just changing up your diet, learning what helps your joints feel good. I don't do soy. Um, I do full fat things because I actually need the fats for my joints to feel good. Um, so there's that. Mental stuff. Okay. Mental stuff can be anything from how you task, whether you multitask or single task. It can be how you take in information, whether it's reading something, a book, or physically writing, or physically reading, or do you need to have a conversation about it and actually like dive in deep? And some of these things take a practice. Some of these things you just probably already know. I prefer to listen to things. I prefer to read things in print. I prefer to read things in Braille. Whatever works best for your brain to comprehend information. Mental is also single task versus multitask. Okay, so I used to stay with my mom when she was dealing with some health stuff. And I can tell you, my mom learned very quickly that dumping her entire to-do list on me at the beginning of the day, right after I've had coffee, she at least waited to have coffee. She learned very quickly that if she dumped her entire to-do list on me, first thing, it wouldn't happen because I was overwhelmed by the to-do list. If she gave me 2 tasks, like small tasks to do, and then I went and completed those tasks and came back and said, what's the next few things you need to do? I am not a multitasker. I am overwhelmed by multitasking. I cannot do them. People ask me, don't I cook on multiple burners of my stove? No, I do not. I might do something in my oven and something on top, on the stove top, or something in the oven and something in the Instapot. I do not cook on multiple burners at one time. I get overwhelmed with that. So I cook on my skillet. I'll cook on my Instapot. etc. But I don't try to cook multiple things at once. Something will not happen the way I want it to. And that kind of leads into my next thing was doing things with intention. Um, so many people do tasks to check the task off of the list. And so they end up doing it in such a hurry. They're violent. I don't want to say violently, but like to me, it seems violently like they're throwing their laundry into the washer. They're, um, you know, moving things around more aggressively just to like get the job done. I am very intentional with items that I own or food that I'm about to nourish myself with. I am conscious about it. I'm intentional. There is a method to which I do it. And I'm not saying that like I have the answers here. I'm saying that like feel into how you do a task. Do you do it because the bitch needs to get done? Or do you do it because you care about the thing that you're taking care of, whether it's the food you're about to nourish yourself with, the clothes that you've invested in, the shoes that you've invested in, the technology that I see people throwing around their iPhone all the time. Those things are expensive. Why are you being so mean? Or they buy $1,000 iPhone with like a $10 case on it that barely even protects it. That's the kind of stuff I'm talking about when it comes to tasking or being intentional, and stuff like that. Those are practical things you're probably already doing because you probably already noticed that you don't like to multitask, or maybe you can multitask, but you can only multitask with these types of tasks or those types of tasks versus like if you have to do, you know, certain tasks you can't multitask. I simply just don't multitask. It just doesn't work for me. Am I slower at things because I'm more intentional? Yep, but that's okay. Um, Mentally, how do you convey information, communicate information? Um, that kind of thing. Do you type? Do you braille it out? Do you write it out, physically write it out? All of those types of things. So like conveying information. So these are the things that are very practical, but they're very spiritual because you're honoring however you do it, whether you single task, multitask, whatever it is we're talking about here. The real point is, are you honoring what works for your system, your mental headspace, um, and whatnot? Um, I'll say this too. When I used to go to my family on the weekends, kind of got to the point where I was like, I really want to make sure that I am helping do something. And so eventually my aunt and uncle and I had a conversation about it. And my aunt was just like, hey, just ask us, just say you need to be assigned a task, and they would assign me a task. So I wouldn't have to be maneuvering around all of the people that were there for whatever dinner we were having, but yet I was able to do a task. And sometimes that meant doing the dishes, which is fine. Sometimes that meant transferring food from one thing to another, which is fine, but it was at least me doing one task that's helpful, that honors me not needing to move around so that I don't trip over shit or run into people. But it's also, I can also help do something. So getting support where you need to have support and not being afraid to have those types of conversations. Okay, emotional stuff. Um, okay, I'm kind of an expert at emotional dumpster fire cleaning up. I have a Scorpio moon. Um, and I used to be really emotionally overreactive to so many different things. And I mean, like tempered, like like big, huge, bawling my eyes out breakdowns, all of those sorts of things. And those were necessary at the time. They are not necessary now. I do still have breakdowns, but they're not nearly as emotionally reactive. But a lot of that was learning how to track the moon and learning to understand moon cycles and whatnot. So that's kind of where the astrology started to come in, but also like feeling into my body if I would hold in emotions. Let's just say I have like a 12 to 16 hour day where I'm around people all the time. I am helping do an event, or I have this commitment, like just a pile up of commitments, and I don't have time and space between the commitments, right? This used to happen a lot more when I worked full time, which is why I don't work full time because I emotionally and mentally I can't handle working full time. You can call me whatever you need to call me, judge me however you need to. I don't give a fuck. But I don't do well working full time because I don't have time in that full time work schedule and commuting and trying to take care of life responsibilities to process or um like repel all of the energy that I have taken in. So something you might notice, and yes, this is a bit astrology related, but if you have a moon in a water sign, Mercury in a water sign, which I have, um, you are more susceptible and permeable to other people's energy or other energies around you. Um, and you probably need more recovery time. So you can't just go from this appointment to that appointment. And if you do, you're like completely tapped out, zapped out by the end of the day, like energetically, you're like, I need a nap, right? This used to be me. Like I said, when I worked full time and I would go from working full time, commuting home. So of course I'm around people at work. I'm on the bus or trains around people. And then like I come home and like my energy is gone. I do not have the desire to make dinner or whatever. And no, I was not meal prepping back then either, so that didn't help anything. Um, but I would be tapped out and I would sleep for like 12 hours. So I have learned over the years, especially after I got into understanding how my personal energy works. This is something, again, that you just have to practice for yourself. You have to learn how your energy works. Some people can handle being around other people all the time. I'm not one of those people. Um, and I've heard other people not in the spiritual community. I've heard Andy Frisella even say he does not like doing meet and greets. I've heard Katie Van Slyke, who's a huge influencer on TikTok and Facebook and YouTube, does not like doing extensive meet and greets. They don't like being around all the people. You're shaking 100 people's hands. You're hearing their stories. You're hearing why they love you and why they appreciate you. That is overwhelming to even some of these people who are podcast hosters and influencers, is being around all the people. So don't think that you're less than if you are like, I can't do that much peopling. Um, some people can. So there are legit people who can. Many of us cannot and do not want to do that much peopling. So my point is like the practical part of spirituality is literally learning how your systems work, whether it is your physical system, how your, head works, whether you get headaches or not, your belly works, whether you get belly aches or not, you're constipated, you're bloated, or does everything digest freely and you have a regular bowel movement? Have you, dealt with joint issues? Whatnot. Do you move your body regularly? Do you consume food that actually supports your body, or do you shit in, shit out, right? If you don't eat well, you're not going to perform well physically, right? You're not going to be able to exercise and work out, or even go for a walk, or even, get down on the floor to play with kiddo, or whatever the case, climb mountains as I did last summer. You're not going to do that if you're eating like shit. You're eating things that don't support your actual body. And it goes without saying, if you medically need to eat a certain way, don't take this as me saying that you shouldn't eat that way. But there are ways to work with various like medical conditions where you need to eat a certain way. There are ways of working that in with eating well that supports your body being able to function. That is something that I've had to learn over time. I don't have an extensive amount of diagnosis, but I am conscientious of my family history of insane amounts of health issues and currently have none of them. So, which goes anywhere from like high blood pressure to diabetes to, you name it. My family's probably had it. And I think all of us can say that at this point. Um, so that's physical. Mental, honoring, knowing learning, respecting what your mental system needs to function, to operate, whether you honor the fact that you can only single task. If you have a to-do list, maybe you have to break it down in categories, um, or prioritize certain things. I prioritize mine. I'm really working on, I actually just worked with my coach the other day on how to organize my to-do list so that I'm not overwhelmed and how to write out. I'm still learning how to write out certain like tasks for big projects so that I can take a small bite of the project versus feeling like I still need, 2,000 words. I still need this amount of thing done. No, we actually broke it down into um, sections and identified which sections needed what type of work in order to get the project continued to move forward. So I'm still learning how to do to-do lists or task lists that don't overwhelm me and that align and honor my mental. Okay. I have a Mercury in fucking Pisces. I don't function well. I can learn a lot. I have a Mars in Aquarius. I can learn a lot, but I don't function well. And I very much get overwhelmed and overstimulated extremely easily, extremely easily if I don't write. I even have a thingy on I have like a magnetic board on my refrigerator to write down like what meals I'm prepping and exactly what food is going into each meal and what seasoning type I'm using. Like I have very specific ways that I do things so that I don't get overstimulated or overwhelmed, and therefore meal prep happens. And then when I'm in the midst of doing the to-do list or the task list that I need to do for work, for my work, and my projects, like there's that list. So I'm really learning how to organize my day-to-day task lists and to-do lists so that things actually get accomplished and I don't get overwhelmed and overstimulated. But let me tell you, that shit used to put me right back to bed on a Saturday. I would literally wake up and be like, I need to do and write down like 20, 30 things that needed to get done. And I'm like, fuck it, I'm going back to bed. Literally. So if you feel like you're overstimulated, you are not alone. If you're overwhelmed, you're not alone. If you're like overthinking, you're not alone. This is me too. And I have put in like spirituality is not astrology, tarot, oracle, crystals. Yes, those are fun. Oils, herbs, all the rest. Those are fun tools. But unless you actually learn how to honor your system and do what your system literally needs, spirituality won't, no tarot card can fix that. I can tell you about it with astrology, but you got to be willing to do the work, no matter the case. Um, Emotionally, learning how to deal with your emotions, being expressive, knowing that your emotions are part of who you are, especially if you have a lot of Scorpio. I could do a whole fucking series on Scorpio because I feel like I have transmuted some Scorpio shit. But that has taken a fuck ton of work to transmute Scorpio. And I may still not be, I don't know, the best Scorpio, but I have a Scorpio rising, a Scorpio moon conjunct Uranus in my, obviously in my first house, I'm a Scorpio rising. Um, so Scorpio moons are like one of the hardest moon placements in astrology. So if you have a Scorpio moon, I feel you 1,000,000%. We feel things, we feel everything. And you got to move that shit through your whole goddamn body. Okay. And learning to literally express and feel all of my emotions was like one of the biggest. I've gotten a lot better. Um, Anyway, so I'm not saying I don't still have work to do with Scorpio moon stuff, but Scorpio moons are hard. So if you've got a lot of Scorpio placements, I feel you. I feel you. But when it comes to emotional, practical stuff with metaphysics and spirituality, you literally have to feel your feels. You have to cry. You have to feel it in your body. You have to feel the lump in your gut, the lump in your throat, the discomfort, all of those things. You got to feel through it and you need to give it time to express itself. If you don't, that shit harbors up in your body and you develop other types of things because you've harbored up emotions in your body. It's not a good thing. So it can make you constipated. It can give you all kinds of other physical symptoms. So that's how metaphysics works. It's taking the physical and acknowledging that the physical is connected to the mental and the emotional, and that the three have to work cohesively together in order to process things, in order to um, have things move forward. You have to work them all three together. I'd be like, why am I having this thing happen? Why am I having, well, what are you mentally not processing? And it would be literally like I wasn't taking the time to process something mental or emotional, something that hurt my feelings, something that upset me. I remember a time having an experience where I would feel like a pit, like a freaking, weight in my gut, like this, like it felt like a rock in my gut. And it was super weighted, it was super heavy. And I remember that feeling. And it took me a while to understand what that was. And once I did and I processed it, that feeling in my gut went away. So um, learning metaphysics is practical. It's literal. It's just you being willing to work the three parts of you together, the physical, the mental, and the emotional together. So yes, tarot, yes, oracle, astrology, 100%, human design, if that's what language speaks to you. I'm getting better at learning human design. And maybe I need to take a class. I don't really want to though. I guess it's a problem. But human design is great. It does have its benefits. And I am learning more about it because I've been doing some research with it for certain projects I got going on. And astrology and human design are both moving through a transition right now. Astrology, with the age of Pisces to the age of Aquarius. Human design, it's the cross of planning to the cross of the sleeping phoenix. So I have been learning a lot more about human design and how it works with astrology. But yes to all those things. Yes to crystals. Yes to essential oils, incense, sage smudging. Yes to all of these things. But those are tools. If you don't know how to do metaphysics with your physical body, the tools are just extras. So I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave me a comment and I will do my best to respond. And I do have a couple of things cooking up that I will present next week, probably after this new moon in Aries on the 17th. I've been working on some stuff. And if I look really tired, it's because I am, because I kind of jacked up my own sleeping schedule. And then the fire alarm went off in my building at like 3:45 a.m. That's why I would never cook in the middle of the night in this building, because I don't want to be that person. Anyway, also fire alarm going off in my building doesn't really mean much because it's usually a fire like on a whole other floor on the whole other wing of the building. It's just that the smoke alarm sets off the whole system. So anywho, I hope that's helpful. Please click the link below to sign up for my newsletter. There is an issue coming out this weekend. Today is the 14th that I'm filming this, 15th it'll post. The newsletter comes out sometime this weekend. I'm going to talk about one of my favorite parts about studying and learning astrology. I'm also going to talk about Uranus and Gemini, and what that means for your Mercury. So if you're Mercury sensitive, might want to read this weekend's newsletter. I'm trying to be practical about how I present things, so it's not just a bunch of degrees and, geometric minutes and things like that. I love those conversations too, but I really want to help people understand why this astrology is affecting them at such a level. So I hope that these practical metaphysical suggestions, thoughts, and processes were helpful. And yeah, drop me a comment. Let me know. Okay, take care. Bye for now.